Looking for real stories that lift you up? Welcome to Inspire and Impact, the podcast where purpose meets perseverance. This is where transformation begins and your story continues.
Welcome to the Inspire and Impact podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. The show features real conversations with thought leaders, healers, entrepreneurs, and creators to share their journeys of growth, purpose, and making meaningful impact. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Nika Kozyra. Nika, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you share a little bit about your background and who you are today with the audience?
Of course. So I am an intuitive integrative wellness life coach. I started a company called Stole Out Wellness, and I have a very unique approach as far as coaching, life coaching, wellness coaching, whatever genre you want to put it in. And I'm also a first responder on the other full-time job of my life.
Wonderful. So can you maybe walk us through a little bit about what was like your personal health journey that got you to become who you are today? What made you decide to become like a wellness intuitive coach?
So I immigrated to the United States in the 90s from Poland. My whole family is still back there. And when I came here, I started having a lot of autoimmune issues. And not only did I have the autoimmune issues, I'm also a child of a lot of trauma. And I was basically battling my own body for years. And I don't know if you remember the episode of Dr. House, the doctor who had the patients with all these crazy illnesses. People would always say that I should be like on that episode because none of these doctors kind of knew what was going on with me, what to do with me or anything like that. And, I would have extreme physical ailments to the point where I was only sleeping about 45 minutes at a time. Let's say my arm would lock up. I couldn't unlock it. Like I would have had to use my other hand, or I would have sometimes use other props around me to kind of unlock, my hand. And, I would fluctuate in weight. I'd go up, I'd go down. If I stood for, a longer period of time, I would feel like my whole body was crashing underneath me. I would literally feel like my bones are crumbling. I would get like sporadic high fevers where I would just be in fever for 24 hours. I mean, my body was just crashing and no one really knew like what to do with me. I was diagnosed, misdiagnosed, put on this drug, put on that drug. And finally, when I was about 25 years old, I was hospitalized for 4 days. And the last doctor that came to see me was a psychiatrist. And he basically insinuated that it was all in my head, that none of these ailments that I'm saying I have or that I'm experiencing could be real. They don't really make any sense. And like, he thinks this is me just basically acting out something mentally. And that got me really angry. So the doctor who was leading my treatment decided that he labeled me as having fibromyalgia, which if you're familiar with fibromyalgia, it's basically a disease of, exclusion, meaning you don't fit into this category, you don't check off this in this box. So we're going to put you in this one. And he put me on Lyrica, which I can't believe that's still on the market because I was tranquilized basically on it. I gained 30 pounds in a month. And all I wanted to eat is like processed sugars, like Twizzlers and Sour Patch Kids. And that's never been like my diet. And he also put me on about 1,600 milligrams of antidepressants. And I didn't know, but I started having suicidal thoughts. And I knew this girl at the time who was a nurse, and she kept badgering me one day when she came over my house. And I'm like, why are you badgering me? And she's like, why are you on antidepressants? And I'm like, I'm not on antidepressants. Now, granted, this is 15 years ago. So this wasn't the Siri era where you press a button and Siri answers everything for you. But I trusted what she was saying. And then I verified it and I flushed all those pills down the toilet and I never went back to them again. And then I was like, okay, so Western medicine is obviously not going to help me, right? And I'm battling the doctors because I feel like I'm literally fighting to be heard. And what I did was I ended up actually getting the opportunity to move to South Korea. And in South Korea, I met this amazing acupuncturist with her broken English and my broken Korean. She did traditional cupping with the oil and the fire and the ceramic balls on top of me. And normally cupping's about 15 to 20 minutes. So she came back after that 15-20 mark and I heard like her clipboard fall to the ground. And she said, Chincha, which in Korean is, oh my God, wow, like really. And she looked at me and the first thing she said was, "You're in so much pain. Your body is in so much pain." And that was the first time in my life anyone ever acknowledged that I was in pain. And with very limited conversation between us. And then she told me so many different things about the body. And I started looking into more traditional Chinese medicine. And through a lot of experimentation on this body, whether it's like sea moss or bee pollens or, you know, whether it's honey massages, which sound great, but they're extremely painful, right? Mongolian kniving, acupuncture, acupressure. I mean, you name it. Like I've done everything. At 35 years old was the first time in my life that I actually felt my body without inflammation. And I started to sleep. And I didn't feel like I was battling my body anymore. Like my body was no longer this enemy, right? And I felt connected to my body. And now I know when I ate something that wasn't right, or if my body is starting to inflame, I know I need to sweat it out. I mean, I can go to the gym now and I'm not hurting for 3 days after that. I can go to the gym almost every day with time permitted, as we talked about. We're both always limited on our schedules, you know, and I feel great. Like I feel good. My muscles are sore. My body's being worked, but I'm not in pain, which is the key difference for me. And what happened to me was this amazing journey of I wasn't battling my body. My body was my friend. And I was like, great, I'm good to go. And then all this emotional and mental stuff fell on my lap because all these years I've just been trying to survive, right? I've just been trying to wake up, get to work on time like everyone else, and kind of working with this body that was working against me. And I didn't realize just how much of that mental and emotional stuff I really needed to unpack. And obviously I had several other things happen in my private life and, within my career and so on and so forth that didn't help the mental and the emotional baggage. But then once I unpacked that mental and emotional baggage and I realized I no longer wanted to be a survivor of the things that I went through, I just wanted to go back to the state of existence of who I would be if none of those things ever happened to me. And that's the journey I kind of set out on. And then I found the one thing I've been looking for my entire life, which was peace. I completely found peace. I go to sleep every day with gratitude. I wake up in the morning with gratitude. I feel balanced. And I no longer have bad days. I have maybe bad moments in those days. But every single day, I wake up with such a lightness and an energy to it. And then what happened after that is this world of spirituality opened up for me, which I never in a million years would have thought, right? That would have been my path. And I realized that I'm not a people person in so many ways because I'm like an extreme empath. And I never do that because I'm battling my body. Then I had mental, emotional, there's layers to it, right? It's kind of like with an onion. And I mean, I've always been someone who could read people read people before, but now I can literally look at somebody and I can feel their pain. I can see their story and I'm just always spot on. Things come to my mind. It's like because intuition is like a frequency, right? Remember the old TVs with the antennas where you had to kind of wiggle them around in order for them to work? Or like the radio, right? You had to turn that knob, maybe slightly to the left one day, slightly to the right. And that's what basically intuition is. And my intuition is so spot on and it's so key that I'm able to help people on a higher journey. So I never set out to be an entrepreneur. I'm a federal police officer. I've been doing that for a decade. I mean, I work insane hours. I do about 60 to 80 hours a week on a regular week, whether there's an event or, who knows, things happen, right? I didn't look to start a company. I realized through people that I would meet and interactions I would have and people asking me literally, are you a life coach? Are you a therapist? Do you take clients? And that's kind of where the company started for me. It wasn't like this, oh, I want to be a health coach, get a certificate and make 6 figures, right? That wasn't my journey for me. And I've just been so honored and blessed to have the clients that I've worked with and the random people that I meet at the bars or, on holiday or at a wedding. And they entrust in me and they entrust in my energy in order to feel safe and to talk about the things that they're going through. Because I think every single person has a story. And I think a lot of the times we don't want to deal with that story because we don't want to be that person who's, oh, you're damaged or you're broken or you have that scar tissue. And when people see me, I'm 5'10", so I'm a bigger stature than most women. And I look so strong, especially with the uniform on and all that. Who would think that inside of me for all these years was just like, not only this physically broken person, but this mentally, emotionally, and spiritually like broken child. So that's basically how I ended up getting to where I'm at today at 40.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. It's really incredible. And I'm sorry you had to go through all that, but I mean, it's kind of interesting, like your journey, where you got to today. I mean, it's like you said, you never know where like life will take you next. And it's so amazing. And can I ask you, I mean, do you feel like you've always been into it? I think like after all the different things you were doing enhanced your intuition.
So I've always was someone that I just kind of knew things, if that makes sense. Because intuition is more than just a gut feeling. It's like a gut feeling like on steroids. So I've always had gut feelings on it, but I was so busy just trying to survive the body and then working on the mental and the emotional stuff that I didn't really have time to hone in on that spiritual sense of the intuition. So, for example, as an empath, I am an extrovert. I love to have a good time. I love to laugh with people, but I'm very like, guards up, like the ultimate RBF, right? I mean, being Eastern European, we already have that naturally. But, you know, I realized the more energy I was putting up that wall, the more it was draining me. Because my body is in a homeostasis, my mind, my emotions, now my spirituality, I've really had time to kind of flex those spiritual muscles, if you would say, where I no longer question anything that comes to my mind. Like I'll give you a prime example. I had a friend of mine for over 20 years. She asked me to take her on as a client. She was struggling with pregnancy for over a decade. And I was like, okay, I don't charge my friends. I just think it's bad business. And I said, all right, I will, I will work with you. I said, but you got to follow everything I do to a T. And the whole time I was working with her, I had this intuition. I knew she was going to get pregnant because I literally dreamed of her child. Like her daughter has come to me. But I had this feeling that this friendship wasn't going to survive past the pregnancy. I just had this weird intuition. Made no sense. We've been friends for almost 23 years. She got pregnant within 4.5 months of working with me. The doctors couldn't believe it. They were like, this is a complete miracle because they've tried everything under the sun for her to get pregnant. And, helped her along the whole pregnancy. She had the baby. Everything was fine. And then our friendship just kind of stopped. And it was heartbreaking because this is my longest friendship of my life. But then there was this energy in me that kept saying to me, like, I fulfilled my purpose. And in the spiritual world, people call that like soul contracts, for example, right? So now granted, I'm definitely not like this hippy dippy, like I wear crystals type of person. And that's fine if you are. I'm personally just not that person. I would definitely say like I'm a hippie and a tree hugger, but, I shave my armpits and I smell good. And most people would never associate somebody who like wears a uniform and has my energy and the way I talk and, as like this spiritual person. But we're all spiritual beings, right? Is my point. And the more I've been able to just kind of trust within what comes to me and follow that, the more blessings and doors have just been opening up for me, to be completely honest with you.
Well, I just find that so remarkable. That it's almost like you're starting to embrace who you really are. Well, I understand what you're saying.
100%. Because, I mean, it's, have you ever heard of, some people call him the poet, philosopher, whatever, Alan Watts?
Yeah.
So Alan Watts, he's one of my favorite people. And he always posed this question: who would you be if money was no problem, no option, right? If money didn't matter, who would you be? So the one thing I always ask almost any client that I work with is, if I had a magic wand and I took away all of the scars, all of the traumas, all of the things that have broken your spirit along the ways, that have made you jaded, that have created anger and grief, who would you be? And that's, I think, one of the most powerful questions you can ask someone, is because majority of the times we fill in roles, right? We find these comfortable roles And that's where we decide we're going to stay in, right? Because change is scary. Something new is scary. And I, at 40 years old, to be quite honest with you, I didn't think I'd see 40. All the things I've gone through and all the things I've experienced, I didn't think 40 would be a chapter of my life I'd experience. Now that I'm here, I'm like, I kind of don't know what to do. So I'm just letting it flow and I'm just letting it come from a place like I no longer walk around life from a perspective of a reaction, right? I don't walk around life because of a trigger. I just let life come to me. Who comes in my life is a lesson or a blessing. Whatever happens to me is meant for me, not to me. And the more I lean into that, the more things just kind of come together, right? It's like a great like little Lego set.
Wow, I find that so amazing. I mean, I think you're also extremely talented. The fact that you said like you can do so many different things and you have so many different skills. And you said like you learned all these different type of jobs, multiple careers. Most people can have done all of that. It's almost like I see you as both left brain and right brain type of person.
Well,
Like more like
to be honest with you, I think there are two people. I think there are jacks of all trades and then there are masters. I will never be a master, but I am a jack of all trades. I may not know 100% of 100% of things, but I definitely know 80 plus. And I think you need both of those people in the world because, for example, I know how to change my tire. Nothing past that when it comes to my car, right? I know like the nuances, but I'm not a master mechanic. I go to a master mechanic for that, right? So I think it's about kind of figuring out who are you? Are you a master? Are you an expert in that field? And do you grow and develop that field? Or are you someone like me? And I think that's also kind of what makes me very unique with my clientele. I don't have one type of client. For me, I work with clients from everyone with, mental health issues, like people who, for the first time they were committed, were 9 years old, you know, all age groups up to 72 years old, people who have, post-cancer, fibromyalgia, infertility, PTSD, sex addiction, drug addiction. I mean, just everyone, because at the end of the day, I don't care where you come from in life, your socioeconomic background. The number one thing is to get to where you're meant to get to, you need to reconnect with you. And that's what I think is the fundamental message that I bring to the table. And I also look at every single person as a complete layer, right? So it's the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual connection for every person. And if you, for example, if I'm working with a client who wants to lose weight, I can sit here, we can go to the gym, I can rate you out of nutrition, I can even cook your food, like, right? I go all out for my clients. Whatever they need, it's always a la carte, it's always custom made. But the minute I walk into that person's life, they're not only going to gain back what they lost, but they're going to gain 20 extra pounds on top of it. Because I didn't do my due diligence as their coach to address all of those fundamentals within them. Once you know why you're fat, then we can figure out how to unfat you permanently.
so a lot of these things you do a lot of like mindset coaching to get into like the root core beliefs of what's causing their behaviors and why they're doing what they're doing or what
So
they're not could be
I,
doing.
I think mindset coaching is a little bit more specific. What I do is I reconnect the person to themselves and I give them tools in their toolbox in order for them to develop their own intuition. Because every single one of us have intuition, right? But it's been trained out of us. It's, do as I say and don't question me, right? That's what you learn in school all the time, right? Your body is telling you, I have to go to the bathroom, but this teacher's telling you, no, you're going to sit there until I let you, right? So we're constantly, from a young age, we're constantly going against our natural communication of the body, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. So I work with my clients to reconnect back with themselves. I'm not doing anything for my client that they don't already have within them.
Oh, okay. So that's what you mean by connecting back to you. So you're connected to almost their intuition, their true self, what some people say, or their higher selves, so they can get the answers and figure out who they really are. Wow, that's really interesting. It's definitely like a unique approach. I haven't heard that many, maybe I haven't heard of any coaches that really do that. As you said, most people, coaches, they have a structured program, as you said, follow like A, B, and C, and then it's up to the
Yeah.
client. And they say, well, it's your responsibility to follow these directions.
Yeah, no, I think this is where I kind of struggle within this community of like life and health coaching. Everybody wants to have a program. There's no program with me. I'm like a fine Italian suit tailor. You know, you come in, we measure you, we look what colors are right for you, what textures, what cuts, and you walk out with a suit for you. You don't come into my fine tailored suit shop and we try to figure out which one off the rack works for you. And I know personally, as someone who's grown up with a ton of trauma and had a lot of issues, right? I have never been successful with any type of therapy or any type of coaching or counseling in the past because number one, it's not interactive. And if I want to sit there and just to talk, for me personally, I could just talk to a friend, right? I could talk to a random stranger at a bar. For me, I create everything with my client. Like we're a partnership. You know, if you look at I'm a big sports fan. If you look at the top athletes in the world, they always give credit to their coaches, right? Because it's their coaches that, sometimes have to put, their foot in their bum, right? Sometimes it's the coach that has to kind of get at them, motivate them, shake them up, make them feel uncomfortable. And that's who I am. And I feel like this is why I've been so successful with all the clients that I've worked with is because there isn't this like 10-step, 6-week program. My goal is if I'm working with you past 2 to 3 months, unless there's a lot of severe stuff going on that we got to unload and unpack, I'm not doing my due diligence by my client.
Oh, thank you so much for explaining that. I mean, I find that makes you so unique and amazing. Like you said, you're not like a typical life coach on Instagram that says, oh, yeah, I can teach you about how to achieve your goals in this 3-step program. A lot of
Because
other people
I just,
copycatting.
yeah, I mean, and that's why I kind of don't even like to have that title. I just think I'm, this immigrant girl who came to the United States, who never thought in her wildest dream to be reaching 40. I was beyond blessed to physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually heal myself. And I'm out here living my best life. And if there's one thing that anyone watching this takes away from it is you can do it too. You have everything within you, to have everything that you want. And you start with your imagination. Because if you can envision it, you're already 90% there. Now it's just figuring out how to get yourself there.
I mean, I was also curious to know about like your company name. Like you call your company name Stole Lot.
Wellness. Yep. You said it
Well,
great.
what exactly does that mean?
So in Poland, our birthday song is, in the United States, it's happy birthday to you, happy birthday. So in Poland, it's 100 lat, niech żyje, żyje nam, which means 100 is 100, lat is years. So it's 100 years, for you to live, right? It's basically like a blessing for you to live 100 years. And I think, unfortunately, the more technologically we're advancing, the less we're living. We're just existing. We're on this autopilot, right? Like the cars drive for us, the Uber Eats bring us our food, the microwaves heat them up, right? We're not really living. I mean, how amazing is that home cooked meal around like a family and a table and everyone's talking and laughing, right? And nowadays, you only really see that for what? Maybe sometimes at holidays. So we're being more and more disconnected, not only from me as an individual, but as a collective. So I wanted to name my company something that was not only true to my homeland, my culture, but I think it's just such a powerful message. I literally had a client tell me today, well, you're going to easily live to 100 years. And I said, my goal is 120. Don't, shortchange me on that, and I'm going to live. I'm going to be fully functional driving all of my grandkids and kids want to have them crazy, That's like my objective.
That's wonderful. So how do you explain exactly what you do, since what you do is so unique to people who don't know about like intuition or or energy healing, or about, like how do you explain what is it you do? Because it's so different and unique compared to a lot of other people.
So, I've been very fortunate in the sense of clients find me a lot of times, and a lot of time it's referrals, or maybe it's a YouTube video, or, something on Instagram that I post. The one thing that clients, when I've ever asked them, why did you choose to go with me or anything like that, it's always been, you're just different. And I think you can tell that I'm different. I don't use the buzzwords or the cliche methods, or, I'm not, I don't go past my education of certification type of stuff. What I basically tell people is, and I say this to any client that I work with, is I am the bridge. So you use me and we're going to go from one end to the other end, and you decide how we're getting over it. All right. Are we going to slow walk? Are we going to bachata? Are we going to crawl? Are we going to, however you want to get over the bridge? And basically you're using me as a mirror of self-reflection, because a lot of the times people have great intentions on wanting to be better and do better and, fulfill these life goals, but then they feel stuck and they have all this debris and all these cobwebs on the shelves. And for me, you just kind of stick it all onto me. I help kind of organize everything for you. And we work from that point. And I really let my client be the leader of their own journey. And I'm literally just the coach. I'm the support within that journey.
Can you maybe explain, like, how exactly do you find like these root cause of their like beliefs or emotions that may be blocking people, having like better health or a better, achieving their goals?
So I have a pretty detailed health history form that I go through, and it's comprised of the mental, emotional, sexual, physical, spiritual, right? I want to kind of know. And just the way someone fills out the form gives me already a preview of what's going on with them, and, how little, how much, what they disclose, what they don't, right? I've never had a client come to me for what they think is their ailment, and that really be the ailment where it's their symptom, if that makes sense. Like the friend that I helped to get pregnant, yes, her body needed some work. She did need to lose some weight. We needed to get her up, on some bee pollen, some sea moss, better supplementation. Those are easy fixes though. It was the mental and emotional stuff that she needed to unblock, and the grief she needed to get rid of. Because if you spiritually think of it, a woman's body, in order to receive the spirit of a child, needs to be warm. It needs to be a welcoming place, right? I mean, would you rather be like on the beach somewhere in the sun, hearing those birds chirp, or do you want to be like in a cold, damp, black cave with water dripping? So,
Obviously.
so when we really unblocked that mental and that emotional stuff for her, I mean, I knew it. I knew it wasn't. I literally saw the change in her, and I knew it wasn't going to be long for her to, you know, to get pregnant, because her spirit was now open to it. She was healing, and children don't come into hostility. I've also had clients who were on, pharmaceuticals, right? For, bipolar, depression, all this different stuff from a really early age. And they just thought for the rest of their lives that they were going to need to be on them, when I explained the physiological effects and the physical effects and the way that the chemicals that you eat, your McDonald's French fries, all the chemicals it has in you, and it stimulates you in all the wrong ways. I mean, working with me within 30 to 60 days, they decided themselves to start weaning themselves off those medications. And they literally would say they would never feel this way. They've never thought they could feel this way before, you know? So everyone's approach is very different, but no one has ever come to me for what they think they're coming to me for, if that makes sense. But I think that's the point. I literally had this conversation the other day where all of the things that I'm speaking about, all the nutritional stuff that I know, everyone can learn this, right? Stop playing your Candy Crushes and your TikToks, and you can go pick up a book, right? And now even Google kind of answers everything for you. But the issue is that you don't know how to connect it. And that's basically where I come in to that situation in someone's life.
That's really great. So who's like your ideal client? Because you're so talented, you have so many different skills. Is there like a particular type of person like you like to work with? Or do you do you work more with women, men, like any certain demographic?
So I
Or is it deeper
definitely,
issues?
yeah, so I definitely have a more male client base. I think that has to do from the fact that I'm a bit of a tomboy, I'm a diamond in the rough. I don't have a problem with the F-bomb. If you're looking for polished Barbie, it's not me, you know? I also think working within law enforcement, being the only girl in the family, always being around boys, to this day, some of my closest friends are males. I can kind of connect to men a little differently. I love to work with men because personally, I think you guys have it really hard in society. I think it's very difficult to be a man nowadays. I think the expectations of what a man is very skewed, in my opinion. I think it's very hard and heartbreaking and disheartening at the fact that men are so removed from the familiar structures, right? So many little boys are growing up without men in their lives. And it's this mentality that women have now fostered of, I don't need a man. Well, honey, that's great, but there shouldn't be a competition between men and women. It should be complementary, right? There should be a team. It should be two people with two different skill sets coming together to build this beautiful foundation of a family, of a partnership, whether you have children or not. And the biggest example that I've seen in society and what I always kind of use as my example is, you have a lot of single mothers, right? Nowadays, more than none. Even for us, we've seen how that's progressed. And if the woman has that mentality of, I don't need a man. What do I need a man for? I don't need a man. That little girl in the house is going to grow up saying what? Not that she doesn't need a man. I don't want a man. What do I want him for? If my mom doesn't need him, what do I want him for? Right? So then what happens to that little boy in that house? He goes, well, wait a minute. There's no other male figures in this room. It's just my mom and my sister. And all I've heard from my mom my whole life is she doesn't need me. My sister says she doesn't want me. So I don't want to be a man. And I feel like that is such a heartbreaking concept that I see so often within men, whether it's within colleagues, friends, clients, that they don't know where their role and their place is in society.
I was a little bit shocked you said that because coming from like a woman, I usually find that a lot of women said that women aren't achieved failure or women don't know their role or, that type of thing.
I
But it's
mean,
definitely an interesting concept of,
yeah, listen, I'm a child of a lot of trauma by not only, my father and the relationships I've been in, but I love men. And I love men just the way I love my sisters. I love women too. And I think the biggest issue is that we are trying to be so divisive as a society, right? Whether it's gender, whether it's, complexion, whether it's religious beliefs, whether it's sexual orientation, whatever the case is, like, I believe in connection. So instead of focusing on what makes us so different and then deciding we're dividing from that point, I would love to see more people. It's kind of the way I immigrated to the United States, right? I grew up in New York, diverse, right? I mean, you got everybody under the sun in New York. And there was a beauty in being different. There was a beauty in the fact that I have green eyes and, I have paler skin and I eat pierogi. And my best friend, he was a little Haitian boy, with brown skin and brown eyes, right? And, and that was a beautiful thing. That was cool. Like, you're different, I'm different, but like, we're still together. Like, we still are connected. Whereas nowadays, it's turned into this angry society of divisiveness. If you don't think like me, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a sexist, you're like, it's so disheartening. And maybe I see it that way now more because I'm now connected within myself. So I believe instead of being someone who magnifies an issue, I rather de-escalate the issue and open communication. Because, this is something I teach. I'm also an instructor for my agency. I teach in one of my classes where there is no such thing as problems between people. It's simply lack of communication skills. We are no longer talking to each other and having uncomfortable conversations. We're literally talking at each other and trying to force our viewpoints and our objectives.
Can you maybe explain, like, how do you, like you said, like, you don't have a cookie cutter approach and, you do personalized plans or coaching for each client because they're all different. So how do you set that up when everybody's so different? It's like different backgrounds, different mindsets, different stories, different mentality. Like, how does that work? Like, when everybody's so different.
I mean, I don't, I remember hearing a coach say this once, and he said something to the effect of, if you're prescribing every client the same prescription, you're not coaching. You're just basically just one size fits alling people. And I am not a one size fits all type of personality, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I've always been that outlier. And I honestly, I create a safe place and safe space for my client. And regardless of what that means, like, I have gone to clients' houses. I've literally helped them clean. I've cooked meals. I've prepped them before big presentations and meetings. I'm not working with you 1 hour a week or biweekly or, whatever. And then I'll see you when I see you. Like, I'm 110% invested into the success and transformation with every person that I work with. And, you know, for me, that's more important, is the goal of you getting to where you think you want to be and me upping that ante even more. That is why I honestly do not just take any client. I have a lot of people that have approached me. I've done marriage counseling, family counseling, all that stuff. And there are people I will not work with because I put way too much of me into somebody who just wants to pay me money for just, I mean, you can go to a therapist for that, like, I'm results driven. So I'm very big on that with my clients. That's why I'm very selective, and I only will work with people who really want to see a change in their existence.
Well, I've never heard of any coach that does what you do. I mean, not just like your mentality, but like going to people's homes, cooking for them. I've never heard of any coach do that. Most coaches, they say, let me see how he can fit into my schedule. Here's my schedule. Look at, a call once a week, and that's for it. And that's right there. You go much more than most other coaches, or probably any other coach I've ever talked to. I've spoken to hundreds, if not over 1,000 coaches, and that says a lot. That's pretty amazing.
Thank
I
you.
want to ask you, I mean, now that you've worked with a lot of like people and you've learned so many things, do you find that there's a common like emotional block, like a lot of people you work with seem to have?
No, I wouldn't say it's an emotional block because everyone has a different journey, right? Like, your experience physically will never be my experience physically. So I don't think that it's common in that regard. I think the one thing wholeheartedly is just people are disconnected. They're so disconnected that they don't know they're disconnected.
I want to ask you about that. So, are people who feel disconnected, is there a way that they can start connecting by themselves, or like they really need to start seeing you in order to start building that
No,
connection?
I'm not a gatekeeper when it comes to information. I think that's probably what also makes me a bad businesswoman, but I don't gatekeep information because I want society in general. I want us to get to a better place collectively. The one thing you can do that is absolutely free is find your joy. And people look at me like, what? Joy, right? What are you talking about, lady? You cannot find happiness in life without joy. And what joy is, it's that feeling, that emotion. It's that, presence underneath the Christmas tree excitement. It's that riding down your bike on a summer, right? It's that stuff as a kid. I literally saw this little boy about 2 weekends ago riding his bike. And I'm like, where the hell, I'm on duty. I'm like, where in the world are his parents? And he's going so fast down that block. And I can hear him breathing across the street. And then, like, his father is like trying to run after him with the stroller halfway down the block. And that kid get to a halt right at the crossing of the crosswalk. And he's just like panting and his chest is moving. And he had the biggest smile on his face. That's joy. Where's yours? You know, People always tell me like, I have no makeup on. I don't, right? This is me after a 16-hour day of work. And they're like, oh, you look so much younger. And what do you do? Like, where's your Botox? Never done any of that, right? There's natural hair color. I'm very simple. I keep it basic. In a lot of ways, I just don't have time for that stuff. But I found my joy. I do things every day for me. Nope, not for anyone else. I do things for me. And I have decided that I'm going to treat myself the way I wish an adult would have treated me. I am now the adult for the little Nika inside of me, and I treat her like platinum. I take care of her. If I want to eat a nice meal, I go to that nice restaurant. If I want to be on do not disturb for an hour and I want to sit here and read my book, I unapologetically do that no matter whatever else, what else is going on. You know, I have found that if you spend 15 minutes every day doing something that you enjoy, and a lot of times it's stuff that you loved as a kid. Is it Legos? Is it Play-Doh? Is it painting? Is it whatever the case may be? Not a responsibility, not staring at a TV screen, not scrolling through TikTok, actually doing something that's stimulating the other side of the brain that is sitting there dormant. People just start to just reconnect with themselves, one big thing I do with a lot of clients is I find music and scent and taste buds to be very powerful. You know, put on your favorite song while you're eating your favorite meal from your childhood, with like your favorite candle scent or something. And man, will that nostalgia, that's so transformative. Those little tiny things that you could do. You can see huge changes with tiny little adjustments. But it's really truly about finding that joy.
I want to ask you, since you said, you're a federal police officer and emergency medical responder, which in my point of view are very stressful jobs. I mean, I haven't worked in those industries. I don't know. I mean, from the outside looking in, they appear to me like very stressful. How have you dealt with, very stressful like situations, like in terms of like your, in your wellness coaching, how does that all work out?
Just so that I understand the question, are you meaning how do I deal with the things that have impacted me, or how do I translate what happened to me and relate to my clients?
Yeah, exactly. Like the latter.
Okay. So I think that's why being someone that wears her uniform 7 days a week, most, 12 to 16 hours a day, you have to be stoic, right? Like you can't be an emotional mess because then that's not what people run towards you, not away from you normally in situations. I think that's what's given me the ability to connect with a lot of other first responders and, people in the military or just people who have very, stressful jobs, FAA controllers, like those guys, one wrong move and a plane is going down, right? And the whole time you have to be professional, and professional usually means you need to tap into that level of stoicism and you have to be completely in control because no one follows an emotional leader. And I think because I can relate to that, I can empathize in that regard. I've walked those miles in those shoes. There is that understanding that I have with those clients that other people haven't been able to tap into. And, I've dealt with a lot of suicide in my personal life as well as on the job. And I think the most frustrating thing is when I see like an overweight therapist come and we have these meetings, they're called roll calls, and telling us like, if you need me, call me. I'm here for you. Like, lady, you don't look like you could even run up a flight of stairs, let alone carry like 22 pounds of gear on your body every day. And you have no idea what life in my world looks like. You can't relate to me. So why in the world would I even go to you? There has to be some type of commonality there. So, I see that very often. I've actually only met one organization that really kind of gets it of what it's like to be a first responder, and they're doing some phenomenal stuff. But yeah, there's a huge need for that. there's a huge need for people to be honest. I get told off very often, wow, you're so, unguarded and you're so forthcoming and you're so transparent. Well, I mean, at this point, I'm 40. Like, Daniel, how much more am I supposed to hide?
That's a good question. I mean, some people do it their whole lives, like in their
Yeah.
70s and 80s.
Yeah. And you
It's
know
a
what?
personal choice. Personal choice.
Yeah. I mean, I just am so blessed that I've gone through everything I've gone through and I've gone through it and I'm still here because I know people who've gone through the same things and they're not here with us anymore. And that, in a way, this is my way of honoring them and their memory and really letting people know we all have power within us. You just got to tap back into it. Live your life, smile more, you know, eat great food, have great drinks, have amazing sex, do phenomenal traveling, whatever makes your heart pitter patter a little bit more. Like, none of that is without the realm of possibility for every single person.
Can you maybe share with the audience, maybe like a few of your like client transformational stories so like they can better understand? I mean, you talked a little bit about what you do and stuff, but maybe you share some stories of how you help your clients.
Yeah. I mean, I've had clients who've had, physical ailments like autoimmune issues. And, a lot of times I do those personally in-house because I not only do the coaching, but I also do physical stuff. I'm someone who I know about essential oils and herbs and things like that because I've used that stuff on myself. And, they'll come in and we'll do some treatments on the body. And those are obviously longer sessions. And everyone is always amazed by how fast things change. One of my partners at work, she has such terrible allergies. It's like she feels like she's dying. And I put her just on a very simple protocol of sea moss, bee pollen, super greens, just like a bunch of different things. This is the first time in her life that she has not had a single sniffle or an allergy reaction. And DC is terrible when it comes to pollen, right? Once again, little tiny adjustments, right? These don't have to be gigantic life overhauls. I come into your fridge and I throw everything out. Like, I'm not Jillian Michaels. I love her, but she's great energy. But like for most people, that's scary as shit and they're not interested in it. It looks great, but they don't want it done to them. I had a client of mine reach out to me. He was overseas and he was deployed in a active war zone. And, I knew when he reached out to me, something was going on. And I was like, hey, how are you? What's going on? And he's like, yeah, I haven't slept in 6 months since I've been here. I was like, okay. We talked for a little bit. I said, I'm going to send you some hertz. And, hertz are frequencies. You got to be careful with them because, not everyone is trusted within the frequency. And I literally just sent him like a compilation of hertz that I have kind of posted on my YouTube channel from a great company called Meditative Mind. And he literally messaged me back about 8 hours later and was like, Nika, that's the first time I've slept. Right. And those are just like, obviously quick, non-intricate type of transformations. But my point in bringing those particular ones up is you can literally start with just the smallest little changes, habits, boundaries, whatever you need in your life, and you're going to see gigantic results.
Wow, that's really amazing. I mean, if somebody has a question about the conversation today or interested in working with you, what are the best ways they can reach out to you?
So they can reach me at my website, which is www.stolatwellness.com. And Stolat is spelled S like Sam, T like Tom, O Ocean, L like Larry, A like Adam, T like Tom, wellness.com. Or they can email me directly at NIKA at stolatwellness.com, STOLAT wellness.com. And they could always, connect with you and, we can connect that way. I try to keep it very simple. All of my Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all literally Stole Out Wellness is the handle. So I'm pretty easy to find, whether you're Googling me or finding me on YouTube.
I'm going to make sure we'll put your website and social media links in the description right next to the podcast so people can easily, find your links and
Thank you.
easier. Do you have, Nika, any like final thoughts or anything else you like to say before we, close off for the podcast?
Well, I would love to say thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and to sit down and finally do this podcast. I know our schedules are a little crazy, and please keep up and doing what you're doing, right? Keep shining bright. And for everyone that's watching, man, go find your power. Go find your joy. Take 5 minutes uninterrupted to go do something for you. And you'd be surprised by how much that changes your life and your existence. It's You don't got to move mountains. You just got to move a few sticks out the way. That's all.
Well, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. Like, I really appreciate you. I find it so special and unique. Like that, like you speak your truth, and I don't know, people tell you have like this, your head like radiates of this beautiful energy of so much like life force coming.
It's the apple head. It's the Eastern European apple head, you know?
Well, I mean, you come across to me like somebody who's like really healthy now. So when you tell me like, you had all these health issues in the past, I'm like, that couldn't be you. It's like,
I kid you not, Daniel. If I could find a photo, and I will send this to you, of me 20 years ago, I look better now than I did then. Yeah, like immensely better.
well, thank you so much for being you, helping so many people, like doing everything you're doing. Like you have such amazing skills and, putting it to use. And, so I'm glad that you are here today, despite everything you've been through. So thank you so much. And, good luck with everything, with your coaching, everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.